On Channel 5.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Bill Rediker reporting. More than 125 people were injured today in Institute, West Virginia, when toxic fumes from a Union Carbide pesticide plant leaked into the atmosphere. Company officials say the fumes contained a small amount of the gas that killed more than 2,000 people last year in Bhopal, India. Robert Shackney has more in this report.
When the first gas leak alarm sounded at 9:30 this morning at Union Carbide's Institute plant, the first fear was a leak of methyl isocyanate, or MIC, the gas that killed more than 2,000 people in India last year. It turned out instead to be a mixture of very different chemicals, mostly a substance called aldecarboxene, which is not nearly as toxic as MIC. But it was bad enough for ambulances to rush more than 125 people to hospitals for treatment of burning eyes, sore throats, and nausea.
I feel nauseated and my chest is tight, my head's light. But you know, what's going to happen 10 years from now? Will we all have lung cancer?
Union Carbide officials said a gasket ruptured in a pipeline connected to the tank storing 500 gallons of aldecarboxene, which is used in manufacturing pesticides. And the leak was not sealed for 15 minutes. But company spokesman said that for all the irritation, there was no major threat to the surrounding community.
We did alert the Institute community to go on standby, and we assured them the best thing to do is stay indoors, listen to the radio, and stay calm. And to our knowledge, there was never any danger to the community.
All the patients that were admitted had fairly mild to moderate injuries caused by irritant gases, and I would suspect the stays would be fairly short, along the lines of 1 to 2 days.
State air pollution officials say they don't know yet just how much gas escaped or its precise chemical makeup. The accident does not appear to have been life-threatening, but in terms of the number of people who needed medical help, it was one of the more serious accidents in this West Virginia valley that's packed with chemical plants. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
In a report published by the Dallas Times-Herald today, new details about the final moments of that Delta jumbo jet that crashed 9 days ago. Martha Teichner has this report.
The Federal Aviation Administration has not released official transcripts or tapes of the tower communications and refuses to acknowledge whether the Dallas Times-Herald version of events is accurate. The published transcript confirms reports that until moments before the crash, both tower and pilot thought everything was fine. 6:03:30, air traffic control tells Delta 191 we're getting some variable winds out there due to a shower at the north end of DFW. The transmission routine so far, no indication of violent wind shear activity. Then the tower orders the plane to slow down to 150 knots. At 6:03:58, the pilot says, Delta 191 out here in the rain feels good. 4 seconds later, he is cleared to land. At 6:04:06, the pilot replies his last words to the tower, "Thank you, sir."
Yeah, I heard it. I didn't. It was a normal, routine, polite, and businesslike thank you. Thank you, sir.
By the time the tower issued the order, Delta go around, less than 2 minutes later, it was too late. The plane had already hit ground for the first time. Weather is still the key factor under investigation in the crash. The Airline Pilots Association would like the new Doppler weather radar capable of detecting wind shears installed not only at airports, but in airplane cockpits as well, and to see that information already available is given to pilots.
Today, there is instrumentation on the airplane that will provide the pilot with some information on how to get out of wind shear if the pilot or the plane inadvertently gets trapped in that situation. However, that information is not presented to the pilot. It goes into the computer, but is not presented in the cockpit.
12 survivors of the Delta crash remain hospitalized. 5 are severely burned. Delta Airlines had planned to continue calling its late afternoon Fort Lauderdale to Dallas run, Flight 191. But now the airline acknowledges that on September 1st, it will be changed to Flight 139. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Dallas.
The National Transportation Safety Board is expected to file its final report early next year.
This country may be in danger. We could be losing something we can't afford to lose. Once in this country, when a man produced a product, it was the best he could possibly make. He stood behind it with pride. He lived a simple idea. Do it right or don't do it at all. Nobody told him that. No government agency dictated it. And it built a standard of living for the world to aim at. Now that idea is threatened by the slipshod, the second rate. To some it means quick riches. To some it means quick death of the standards we have built. Some are fighting this threat. Whirlpool Corporation believes in one simple idea. To continue to build and sell only good, quality, honest appliances, designed to give you your money's worth, and to stand behind them with pride. Or they will not build them at all. If we can't keep this simple idea alive, then indeed we are the endangered species.
The rising death toll in nearly a week of racial violence in Durban, South Africa stands tonight at 65. There was new violence and killing today in a tribal homeland southwest of Durban during the funeral of a civil rights lawyer who was shot to death. Alan Pizzi was there.
It was the most militant and emotional ceremony in the series of funerals that have become the milestones of the anti-apartheid fight. Victoria Mkengi, civil rights lawyer, murder victim, today became another symbol for the black cause. Because the burial was held in the nominally independent homeland of Ciskei, the banners, speeches and slogans that are banned in South Africa were allowed out in force.
If we have to liberate ourselves by the power of the God, then this is the moment.
The cry was echoed by youths chanting, "I'm a soldier," and miming what they think a guerrilla fighter looks like. Angry women called Mkengi an example for every mother whose children are, as one put it, dying in the streets of apartheid.
Our struggle for freedom has been forced upon us by the actions of this government.
Speaker after speaker called the government responsible for Mkengi's murder, which was seen by many as the spark that ignited black townships around Durban, a problem that was only being resolved today. The very real grief here might have kept the anger to mere words, but as the coffin was being taken to the graveyard, the rhetoric turned horrifyingly real. A truckload of Ciskei homeland soldiers tried to pass. The mourners stopped them and stones flew. The men represented a homeland, a hated symbol of apartheid. One man panicked and tried to run. The mob stoned him to death, then set the body on fire. Those at the graveside either didn't know or didn't see it as a meaningful moment in their cause.
It is widely assumed here that the government will announce some concessions to blacks next week, but they're not expected to be more than symbolic steps on the road to ending apartheid.
And if that is all they are, there will be more days like this, more funerals to come. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Rai, Ciskei.
Pope John Paul, continuing his African tour, was more blunt than ever today in denouncing the violence in South Africa and the system of apartheid he said is to blame. Richard Roth has our report.
Departing from the prepared text of his Sunday prayer during a celebration of Mass in the Cameroon capital Yaoundé, John Paul said the bloodshed in South Africa has caused concern across this continent and throughout the world. He called for an immediate end to violence and discrimination. But a statement issued earlier by the Vatican press office was much stronger and more direct. Racial separation is inadmissible, it said. The Pope appeals for political freedom and freedom of thought and conscience. He profoundly deplores the unjust situation in South Africa. According to his spokesman, the Pope is being kept up to date on developments in South Africa. But by using his strongest words in a written statement rather than speaking them aloud, John Paul was able to avoid the appearance of direct involvement in a political controversy. He flew north this afternoon to what the Vatican calls the frontier between Black Africa and the Islamic world. In parts of Cameroon and other countries near the African equator, Islam is having more success than Christianity in converting people from tribal beliefs. Vatican officials say the Muslim faith represents a growing challenge to the Catholic Church, which the Pope wants to confront, but gently. Here, where the two religions have conflicted occasionally with violence, the Pope's message is that Muslims and Christians should use their common belief in one God as a starting point for better relations through dialogue. Richard Roth, CBS News, Yaoundé, Cameroon.
The President, Mrs. Reagan, and some top White House aides flew today to California for the start of a 23-day presidential vacation at the Reagan Ranch. For the President, it will be a time to rest and to map out strategies on issues such as South Africa. Jacqueline Adams reports.
For the next 3 weeks, President Reagan will be in California recuperating and preparing for the fall legislative offensive. On the agenda is a bill that imposes limited economic sanctions against the South African government. The escalating violence in South Africa led National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane to Vienna, where he told Foreign Minister Botha last week that Mr. Reagan wants to continue working with Pretoria. But he warned that the president may not be able to prevent passage of the sanctions bill, which he opposes, unless South Africa achieves substantive reforms. McFarlane explained that Americans see black South Africans' grievances in emotional terms, comparable to the U.S. civil rights movement. Aboard Air Force One, White House spokesman Larry Speaks said the president hasn't decided whether to veto the sanctions bill, but Senate Minority Whip Alan Cranston said the mood in Congress is so strong an override is certain.
We are a very significant nation, of course, in world events, so it's very important that we go on record very firmly in terms not only of talking against apartheid, which is what the administration does, but taking action against apartheid.
U.S. officials said they don't know when or specifically what kind of reforms Pretoria will offer, but they suggest they will not include an end to the state of emergency, an easing of travel restrictions for blacks, or the freeing of dissident Nelson Mandela. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News with the president in Santa Barbara.
The White House also said today that the United States and the Soviet Union have agreed on a preliminary format for the November summit in Geneva. A spokesman said President Reagan and Soviet leader Gorbachev will hold about 9 hours of meetings. The first day of the summit is reserved for a general exchange of views. The second day will get specific with discussions of human rights, arms control, regional and bilateral issues.
With the help of the 220-calorie Kellogg's Special K breakfast and those big, crispy, low-sugar, high-protein flakes, I can't think of a tastier or better way to start my day.
Thanks to the K, you can't pinch an inch on me.
If you visited all the places some nationwide long-distance companies don't serve, you'd be on the road a long time. There are a lot of services you take for granted with AT&T that most companies don't have, like calling from anywhere to anywhere, operator service, and immediate credit for wrong numbers. Looks like most companies still have a long way to go to measure up to AT&T. The more you hear, the better we sound. AT&T, the right choice.
Here's an important question for Metamucil users. Why should you have to drink this when you can get the same laxative fiber in this good-tasting wafer? Introducing new Fiberall wafers. Fiberall wafers are good tasting, easy to take, and clinically proven every bit as effective for regularity. So which would you choose? This or this tasty Fiberall wafer? New Fiberall wafers. Effective, good tasting, easy to take.
A close call today for Simon Le Bon, lead singer of the rock group Duran Duran. A Royal Navy helicopter rescued Le Bon and 23 crew members of his yacht after it capsized in gale force winds off southern England. A Navy diver said Le Bon and 5 others were trapped below deck, kept alive by an air pocket. The diver said he pulled them out one by one. Nobody was hurt. The yacht was competing in the annual Fastnet race. Thousands of Roman Catholics marched through Belfast today in a rally organized by Sinn Féin, the political arm of the IRA. Lending support, a large contingent of sympathizers from the United States. Dan Raviv has the story.
The Republicans of Northern Ireland, who want to break away from Great Britain, marked the 14th anniversary of internment, the beginning of security sweeps by the British forces and imprisonment without trial. The system's been changed to trial without jury. But the Internment Day protests continue. 3,000 marchers here in West Belfast today, joined by over 100 Americans from the Irish Northern Aid Committee, NORAID.
We would like Margaret Belgrano Thatcher to know that her days are numbered in this country.
The rally was peaceful today, but last year at the same place on Andersonstown Road, there was violence when NORAID's publicity director, Martin Galvin, defied a British government ban by trying to give a speech. In the tumult which followed, a policeman firing a large plastic bullet killed a Catholic demonstrator. There was no sign of Galvin today, but 2 days ago, the American IRA supporter made a sneak appearance at a Republican funeral in Londonderry, helping to carry the casket. And today, the IRA political wing appreciated Norraid's backing.
But they will go back, hopefully armed with first-hand information of the repressive nature of British colonialism.
There were British troops and local police on every side street and at the head and tail of the parade. Overhead, a British Army helicopter took pictures and almost drowned out some of the speeches.
Victory to the Irish people! Victory to the freedom fighters of the Irish Republican movement!
Here on the streets, it's a political show of strength, but what the Republicans call their military struggle continues too.
Hundreds of Catholics in Londonderry yesterday showered rocks and gasoline bombs on police cars. The teenaged attackers reportedly angered by a march by the majority Protestants declaring their resolve to remain loyal to Great Britain. Both sides play down recent talk of compromise. The troubles continue. Dan Raviv, CBS News, Belfast.
At least 7 more Lebanese were killed today as the heaviest fighting in months continued in Beirut. One shell hit the campus of the American University, killing a student. In another incident, Muslim gunmen released more than 60 Christians several hours after their abduction from vehicles headed for the airport.
Get a feel for cotton. It's what you like in denim jeans, because it fits your life and makes you feel free and comfortable. Once you get a feel for cotton, you won't feel like anything else. Look for the True Performance label on Wrangler No-Fault jeans, all cotton for durability and comfort, available at Kmart.
It's an ugly word, but when you suffer, it's ugly too. To stop the suffering, more doctors recommend Anusol than all other brands of hemorrhoid medicine combined. For relief, with more doctors, the word is Anusol.
Could your denture cleanser clean a triple stain of cherry, tea, and tobacco?
I don't think it would.
Extra Strength Efferdent removes the triple stain.
It cleaned beautifully. I'm going to switch to Efferdent.
Efferdent removes even stubborn stains between teeth.
Today was moving day for William Schrader, the world's longest surviving recipient of an artificial heart. Schrader left Humana Hospital in Louisville to take up residence in a specially equipped apartment nearby. He spent a month in the apartment earlier this year, but had to be hospitalized again after suffering a stroke. You may have heard of tennis elbow and shin splints, but you may not be familiar with violinist wrist or drummer's ear. Yet these musical maladies do exist, and as Joan Snyder reports, where there are ailments, there are doctors to treat them.
Music has charms to soothe a savage breast, as an English dramatist once wrote, but producing those pleasurable sounds often inflicts pain and disability on performers. Musicians' occupational hazards range from injured tendons and muscles to heart problems to hearing loss.
I'll get unpredictable, sharp stabbing pains while I'm playing.
James Durham, a symphony violinist, had to stop performing because of severe pain and swelling in his left wrist.
And then going, let's say, over just in first position on the G string. Does that getting your...
Durham consulted doctors at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, one of the first hospitals to introduce the new specialty of performing arts medicine, a team approach by physicians and therapists to treat the many ills of performers.
The largest single category of injuries is what we call an overuse injury. It relates to pushing a tissue, either muscle or tendon or joint, beyond its physical limits.
Musicians often try to hide their ailments because they're afraid they'll lose work in their highly competitive profession if conductors or prospective employers learn they have physical problems. In extreme cases, as happened with celebrated pianist Gary Graffman, the injury can be devastating. He lost the use of his right hand because of tendon damage, perhaps due to overuse. Wind instrumentalists are at risk for problems with their mouths, teeth, and throats because of the intense pressure generated by their blowing. That pressure has been known to cause irregular heartbeat, fainting spells, perhaps higher blood pressure. And there's the Satchmo syndrome, named for trumpeter Louis Armstrong, whose blowing split a lip muscle. Another major hazard is noise. Drummer Ben Herman has what appears to be a widespread affliction.
I found out last January that I had a definite hearing loss.
Hearing loss is also a risk to musicians who sit in front of the loudest instruments, the percussion and brass. Some musicians use earplugs, but others, like Herman, find them too distracting. The search for answers to musical maladies recently brought a medical conference to the mountains of Aspen, Colorado, famous for its annual music festival. While musicians played, doctors exchanged information on treating or preventing their ailments.
Pain should be discussed, and this is why I mentioned it.
Doctors agreed that musicians should be taught as early as possible how to avoid abusing their bodies with overwork, faulty technique, and poor posture. Performing arts specialists also urge musicians, traditionally indoor types, to condition their bodies like athletes with exercise. Ted Piltzecker finds that his kind of exercise helps him to be a stronger vibraphone player, better at maintaining balance and dexterity without strain or undue stress.
My biggest fear is not being able to relax. I know if I relax, the music will flow.
The new harmony between music and medicine was demonstrated at Aspen. Doctors who were amateur musicians playing with students at the beginning of their arduous careers. It was clear that while making music can be hazardous to the health, it is also balm to the spirit. Joan Snyder, CBS News, Aspen, Colorado.
The good news for 12-year-old Mayor Brian Zimmerman of Crabb, Texas, is that he gets to keep his job. The bad news is the reason why. By a 595-30 vote yesterday, residents defeated Mayor Zimmerman's proposal to incorporate Crabb. If the measure had passed, the mayor would have lost his job. Texas law requires municipal officials to be at least 18 years old.
She's a role model. You know, she's the type of lady that we all would like our mothers to be.
Tales of heartburn from Gaviscon antacid. Once a man ate all of Italy.
Pasta with tomato sauce and garlic.
In one night.
And the garlic.
And the only thing that may seem worse than daytime heartburn is nighttime heartburn. Fortunately, there was Gaviscon, specially formulated so it not only gives fast relief during the day, it even works at night when you're lying down. Gaviscon antacid, it even works lying down.
How old should your child be before you buy a computer? High school, when he's planning a career? Elementary school, when she can either fall behind or leap ahead? Or preschool, to give him a head start? When you buy is up to you, but Commodore makes the decision easier than any other computer. Because it's a 64, it's very powerful. Because it's Commodore, it's very affordable.
AT&T is in customer satisfaction. Our people helped Pillsbury design a feedback line using AT&T 800 service.
Can I freeze the cupcakes?
500 calls come in every day, which makes Pillsbury very happy because satisfied customers come back for more. We can help your business in ways you never thought of. AT&T long distance services, the better business machine. Talk with us. AT&T, the right choice.
Most people would do just about anything to stay out of prison, but Sam Ford met a woman who goes to prison voluntarily for what has become her life's work.
Come to the medium security section of Washington, D.C.'s Lorton Prison and you'll see this. But you also might see this.
Oh, baby boy.
Her name is Bernice Slaughter, a 51-year-old suburban housewife who 8 months ago became a volunteer at this prison, and the place hasn't been the same since.
We all call her Mom. You know, she's a guidance. You know, she's a role model. You know, she's the type of lady that we all would like our mothers to be.
She's also a heart patient who 13 years ago suffered an attack so severe she was forced to retire from her job as a congressional aide. Since she'd been at home with her husband James, a retired social worker, worrying about dying, she said, until last year when her cardiac psychiatrist suggested she do some volunteer work.
You have the nails and the hook that he needs for the plaque. Great.
Now, 4 or 5 days a week, Bernice, James, and sometimes a friend or two drive the 32 miles from her Maryland home around Washington's Beltway to the D.C. prison in Lorton, Virginia. She originally came to play the piano and start a prison choir, but with a chapel that looked like this.
I could hardly play for looking at the place. It was so drab. I thought, I can't do it. I can't play it. I mean, I can't put myself into it.
So she got her friend Barbara Barnes to take over training the choir, and she set the prisoners to work, renovating both the chapel and surrounding grounds. With their volunteer labor, the entire project, including a new piano and organ, cost $27,000, which Bernice raised through churches, individuals, and, when necessary, her own pocket.
I think my charge cards indicate something like $3,100.
The reaction at the prison?
Total support from both staff and the resident population. And it became a time that we had to limit the number of residents that was working on this project.
It adds a little, home, being at home atmosphere.
When a guy comes through this way, he feels a little bit free.
Bernice Slaughter says she's not through yet. Her next project is to get new pews for the chapel. She says just because people are in prison doesn't mean they shouldn't have quality services when they come to church.
Somewhere way down deep in the unreachable places of his being, there was a yearning to get himself together. Anybody here ever feel like that? Somewhere.
A preacher's daughter herself, Bernice finds Washington area ministers to volunteer their sermons. And the inmate choir, she insists, is the best anywhere. Bernice says one reason for doing this is most of these men will be back on the street someday. But she has another reason.
It has given me reason for being.
Sam Ford, CBS News, Lorton Prison, Virginia.
And that's the news this Sunday evening. I'm Bill Redeker, CBS News, New York. Good night.
What an amazing sight.
It's even more dazzling than I remember. There's the Empire State Building. What's the matter?
They're not here. The traveler's checks. They're gone. The traveler's checks.
Excuse me. They have one of those refund machines, American Express, at the airport.
They weren't American Express.
We've got no money.
Welcome to New York.
Only American Express can give refunds at traveler's check machines in most major U.S. airports. Don't leave home without them.
What's that, Muriel? A new brand cereal?
It's new Fiber One. More fiber than any other cereal.
Not more than Kellogg's All brand.
Fiber One has more.
More than Nabisco 100% brand?
Fiber One has more.
How can you have more than 100%?
It has less sugar, so there's more room for fiber. Taste.
Good. More fiber, huh?
That's Fiber One. The one with more fiber.
Well, that's one for you, Muriel.
It's one for you, too, Frank.
I'm Phyllis George. How to protect your neighborhood against crime. And Jennifer Beal, star of The Bride, tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.